Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jake Martins. I'm the Deputy Corporate Legislative Officer. And before we proceed with the first order of business, I will just recognize that we're conducting this meeting today on the traditional unceded territory, the Comox First Nation. This is the first meeting of the CVRD's Regional Parks and Trails Committee. And so I'd like just to welcome all the members here today. As I noted, the first order of business is the appointment of the presiding member, and this is due to the terms of reference, which are provided later on the agenda. And in consistency with other committees of the regional district, the election is held at the first meeting of the year of each year. So with that, I would like to welcome any motions to appoint a presiding member for this meeting. And I'll go with Director Morin.
For the presiding member, I'll recommend Director Grieve. Second.
Moved by Director Morin, seconded by Director McCollum. Is there any further discussion on this appointment of a presiding member? Again, the election for the actual committee will occur at the first meeting in which I believe is February of next year. Okay, seeing no further comments, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much, Director Grieve. I'll gladly pass over the chair to yourself.
Thank you very much. I have a 3-page speech prepared, but don't worry, you only have to suffer this one meeting. We'll have a real election in 23, and it shouldn't be too difficult. We only have a few items of business, so I'll call the meeting to order. And recognition of traditional territories. Once again, we're privileged to be doing our business on the unceded traditional territory of Comox First Nations. No delegation, no management reports. The first report is number 1, a roundtable introduction. So I guess we're going to introduce all the members of the Regional Parks and Trails Committee. I'll start with myself. I'm Edwin Grieve. Mel?
I guess I should use my mic. I'm Melanie McCollum. I'm a director from the city of Courtenay.
Jen Mayer from the town of Comox.
Welcome.
Ken Grant, town of Comox.
Hi, Vicki Brown, Mayor of Cumberland. That's really loud.
You know any good songs? Welcome, Vicki. It's great to have you here.
Evan Judika, alternate director, City of Courtenay.
Welcome again. And
Rod Nickel, alternate director for Richard Hardy, Erie B.
Wendy Warren, director for City of Courtenay.
there we go. We're not missing anybody. It's the full committee. Is that right?
Just Director Arbor is missing. He's trying to log on and may be joining us on Zoom shortly.
Okay. He said he was going to try to make it. All right, then welcome everyone. We'll go on to item number 2, Regional Parks and Trails Committee, a term of reference for receipt. Moving second on receipt, over to CAO.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors, and welcome aboard. As this is a brand new committee, Jake Martins will come forward and just give the briefest of introductions of the terms of reference for this committee. And if you have any questions, Jake is here to answer them for you.
So any questions? Jake's ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as just a note, I'll just provide a very brief overview. As the members are likely aware, this committee was established by Bylaw 719, which was adopted through the Service Establishment Bylaw in 2022. The committee membership has created a custom governance structure in which the appointments and the number of representatives for each jurisdiction are population driven. And so that's reflected in the members that we have around the room here, and that will adjust then over time as population changes within the valley. They've also identified a custom governance approach with respect to decision making. And so generally all the decisions of this committee have been the board has delegated all the decision-making authority with respect to this service. There's a few notable things that this committee cannot do, which is adopt bylaws and such. but otherwise the administration and operation of the service are at the purview of this committee. The other one point I will note is just in regards to the decision-making authority. So there is a approval threshold required for this committee that is customized. So on most committees, there's a simple majority that's required. In this case, for the acquisition of property, at least 75% is required. And for all other decisions, a supermajority of 67% is required. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Any questions from the directors? Director Chapter.
Thank you, Chair. And not so much a question, but just some comments on the terms of reference. And I recognize I'm playing as catch up as I'm a newer director, alternate director with a lot of these terms of references. And I know in other regional areas and in other municipalities, it's formalized our relationship with protocols of notification with First Nations in the region. And given the context of treaty negotiations where we're at with reconciliation in the country and here in the community, and given the context of this committee being land-based, water-based, and the context of land back movement in our community and in the country as a whole as well, I'd like to see if there's an opportunity to formalize language in here. I understand that staff have a very positive relationship with KFN staff around notification of work that we're doing here at the regional district. And I'd like to actually see the formalization of that kind of language within the terms of reference here. And so something like that I've seen in other regional districts around protocols of notification of initiation of work or any initiation of a prospective, in this case, prospective land purchase. I know that those conversations are happening informally from a staff to staff level, but I think given the commitments of the regional district to reconciliation, that having formal language within the terms of reference would really enshrine that that commitment. I also have a secondary comment in the authority, the second paragraph in the terms of reference, fourth line down, for the protection and preservation of regionally significant natural areas. I would like to see the word cultural as well, significant cultural and natural areas. Again, just in recognition of the importance of land and water to First Peoples, the Comox First Nation of whose land that we're going to be engaging this work on. So 2 comments, and I'd like to hear from staff if that's something that would be possible. Thanks.
CEO?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the relationship that the CVRD has with Comox First Nation is one of government to government, not staff to government, and staff are merely the instruments that help assist our board in terms of fostering that relationship. Communications from the Comox First Nation in the regional district to date on this initiative is that it will be very important for us to engage with them early and often, and that will be part of the process that Mark and the team will present to you in terms of the conduct of the development of the strategy. So that will be front and center. The Comox Valley Regional District Board has a monthly meeting with Comox First Nation on all initiatives that they have an interest in or otherwise, and that is a forum in which we will keep them informed as to the progress of this, as well as the formal opportunities that come from this. My suggestion on your recommendations for amending the terms of reference would be to, by resolution, ask that staff prepare a statement with respect to the relationship of this initiative and Comox First Nation to be included in the terms of reference. That will go to the board for their consideration. And on the issue of cultural inclusion, I think that may be addressed through the process itself when you establish what your priorities are for the types of lands and amenities and such that you wish to protect or manage through this resource.
Any other comments? So we can entertain this under new business then? We'll bring it forward under new business. Okay. And Director Moore.
Great, thank you. No, I just wanted to lend my support for that idea that Director Jolicoeur is bringing up. It makes me, first thing I think about is medicine gathering and in forests and protection of that, and how we can, kind of formally acknowledge that as one example of cultural protection. So I look forward to discussing it further. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, are you finished, Jake? You have some more to add? I take it you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one final point in support of the comments from the CAO, which is that the reference there in that fourth sentence or the paragraph there with respect to the protection and preservation of regional significant natural areas, that comes directly from the service establishment bylaw, which was developed and approved by the board. So I just wouldn't suggest a resolution to amend the terms of reference to alter that at this point, certainly just given that it would therefore differ from the bylaw itself. So as the CEO suggested, perhaps that can be an amendment or a change that comes later on with a more strategic process that goes through.
Director Jacques.
Thank you, Chair. And just to clarify for staff, it is in the purview of this committee to recommend a bylaw change then as well.
Thank you through the chair. It certainly is within the purview of this committee to recommend a bylaw change, but I guess my comments just more in line with going through the process as the CAO outlined to consider such a change, and any others for that matter that the committee may wish to seek. That seems like the more prudent method to go about considering a sort of mandate change to this committee at this point.
Okay. So nothing further on this item? Oh, Director Arbor, I'm sorry. I think you must be muted. There you go. No, it's not coming through. We're not getting you on this end, Daniel. You're unmuted, but you're still not coming through. Continue on. Nice to see you. Have a nice flight. Okay. Well, I think at that point we can probably call a question on receipt. Anybody opposed? That carries. Okay, so orientation. Staff to provide an overview of the Regional Parks and Trail Service. Over to our CAO for introductions.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. I'll introduce Mark Harrison, who is our Manager of Community Parks and overseeing the regional parks function and service. He'll provide this orientation, including a PowerPoint, and help to answer any of your questions.
You had better ask for receipt first, then. Move receipt? In a second? Okay. Carry on.
Thank you, Russell. To the chair, I just want to give a brief orientation to the brand new Regional Parks and Trails Service. It's I must say I'm very happy and proud to kind of be here at this moment at this inaugural meeting. We can move to the next slide, please. So basically just a quick overview of the service fundamentals. Basically, the purpose is to protect the regionally significant natural areas while providing opportunities for public access and enjoyment, and to develop a network of regional greenways and trails. And as Jake had alluded to earlier, those are taken exactly as verbatim from the service establishment bylaw. As we're all aware, the participants are all the local governments within our regional district. So City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, Village, Cumberland, and each of the electoral areas are participating in this service. So the boundaries are within the CBRD, and it is governed under this Regional Parks and Trails Committee, which has delegated authority over the administration and the operation of the service, as Jake kind of overviewed earlier on. If I can go to the next slide, please. So just a bit quick overview. the committee is responsible for the delivery, overall management of the regional parks and trails. And I think this is really important to understand that it's the regional parks and trails. So it does not consider matters that are related to community parks and trails. That's the parks and trails within the electoral areas, on the islands, or within each of the municipalities. So currently there are no regional parks and trails, but there needs to be a clear kind of differentiation that those parks and trails that I manage under the electoral area services, those are under the purview of the electoral area services committee, and each of the parks within the municipalities are under their purview of their park services. You can go to the next slide, please. In terms of future projects, this is, depending on service funding as part of the 2023 to 2027 financial plan. We are looking to do strategic planning for this service, and that's really to explore what the service vision is, to really figure out what the direction of that service is, what the priorities are, and what the action items are for this service. And from that, we will be able to then look at and deliver a land acquisition strategy, which would build upon that strategic plan. Next slide, please. As alluded to earlier, the relationship that we have with the Comox First Nation is a very important relationship within the regional district. And as part of initiating this service, we will be engaging with the Comox First Nation to really explore their interests in regional parks and trails and to gather their feedback on how they wish to be engaged during this strategic planning process. Quickly, in terms of financial overview, as part of the 2023 financial plan budget, we are proposing $275,000 for this service, which was what was agreed upon through the background study and through the service establishment process leading up to the establishment of this service. It will largely contain funding for the strategic planning process and the land acquisition strategy, and obviously have some funding in there for support services and staff costs, and also allow for a transfer back to the feasibility service funds that were used to establish the service. And then finally, some of the trends with regional parks. I think, it's something that we've definitely seen through the COVID-19 pandemic, that the municipal and all our electoral area community parks, they're really at and reaching our carrying capacity. There are growth pressures within the region and obviously increased demand for our park services. So this service can help in the pursuit of some of those shared interests, such as regional trails and conservation, ecosystem services, protection of biodiversity, and cultural recognition. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. So happy to take any questions if you have any.
Well, I think Director Grant's been waiting patiently. Director Grant.
There you go. Thank you. Well, I happen to have a question. I'm just wondering, you said municipalities would be out, so we wouldn't be able to put some of our municipal parks that we're looking at buying in. But what if you have a trailway? Like I'm thinking of one in particular, it would start in Courtenay, it would run through Area B and end in Comox. Is that something we could look at, or is that outside of the purview, or we just look at the Area B portion?
I think that thank you very much for that question. I think those are the types of questions that are going to have to be decided upon and engaged during the strategic planning process. Which regional trails, greenways are considered regional and want to be adopted and brought into the regional park service. So it will really be to the purview of this committee. Just clarify how it exists. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I just, Doug just wanted me to clarify that it's for new parks. So all those that are existing parks would remain within the community service, park service where they exist currently.
Okay, so it's a work in progress at this point. Alternate Director Nickel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that comment by Doug kind of answered partly my question. I thought you said that the regional district or electoral area parks are responsibility of electoral areas, municipal parks are responsibility of the municipalities. But now we're talking about another function where they're going to be combined. Am I correct in that understanding?
Yeah, through the chair, the Regional Parks and Trails Service will be a distinct and separate function. So the Electoral Area Services Committee Parks Service and the municipalities' park services will continue as they are, and this is an additional service.
Sort of for the pieces that fall through the cracks.
Yeah, I see that, and I'm curious how it's going to hold out because it seems to be adding confusion to confusion. So yeah, we'll see where it goes, but I'm got a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, through the chair.
I believe Mark.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that that question and that clarity, because I think there's probably there's confusion probably around the committee here, and I think there's also confusion in the community about the delivery of those services. So the way our electoral area services, park services are currently delivered is that those parks in the electoral areas are funded by electoral areas only. And with the regional parks and trails, those that are brought in as regional parks and trails would then be funded collectively with the electoral areas and each of the municipalities.
I believe Doug DeMarzo wants to chime in.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one minor addition to the comments is as we move forward, I just want to clarify that the new parks or trail boundaries aren't necessarily restricted to electoral areas or municipalities. They can lie in either the municipal boundaries or in electoral areas and would be considered regional parks, and operational models would be, come out of the strategic planning and other methods. But I just wanted to clarify that anything new can be within either set of boundaries as we move forward.
And Director Moore.
Okay, I thought Director McCollum was waiting. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. I think when we had this discussion to implement this, it was really about looking at those regionally significant areas that are more than maybe a municipality or an electoral area could fund, maintain, purchase on their own. So the benefit of combining and collaborating together to, to have that buying power. And my understanding, as Doug mentioned, was that these parcels could be in any part of the regional district. So that's, I just wanted to add to that. That's sort of where the impetus for this came from. Thanks.
Thank you, Director McCollum.
Thank you. Yeah, my question was around whether or not the service, should the service acquire land? I'm thinking particularly in relation to trails. Would that land acquisition always stay within the service and be operated by the service, or would there be, like I'm imagining, the service providing some connectivity between, say, Cumberland and Courtenay, or Courtenay and Area A, or, these areas where we do have some trails within municipal boundaries, and then we have gaps. And the service could create a multi-use path that would be of regional significance, but maybe it doesn't make sense to, I don't know if I'm thinking, for example, the connection between Courtenay and Cumberland is probably the best because it's quite a rural area that's still in the boundaries of the village of Cumberland, but the service could develop a trail there, and whether or not it would stay within the service or be handed back to a municipality to then maintain. And if that's something that we would decide at strategic planning, or if that's already baked into how we establish the service.
Yeah, good questions for down the road for sure. I think the key with the committee here is that we'll have to remain flexible as we move into those type of agreements. I think, there's many ways that these things could come to fruition, but the general sense is the regional Parks and Trails Committee would maintain jurisdiction and authority over that, and how, for example, if your trail is enacted, maybe with an operations agreement with the Public Works Department or otherwise to be determined in the future. But the authority for and responsibility would likely remain in the Parks and Trails Committee. And subsequently, if there's land purchases or donations or other formations in that, we'd have to be flexible in how we approach those options to best serve our community. And that's part of what this Regional Parks and Trails Committee was set up to establish and do.
Great, thank you.
Alternate Director Nickel.
Push the wrong button. Push the wrong button. No, yeah, this is just becoming a little more confusing. Years ago, Director Grant and I talked about the possibility of combining the parks and trails for the city of Comox, Cumberland, Courtenay, Comox, whatever, and the regional district as one service. It would make it so simple to administer and maintain. Right now, Courtenay or Comox will have their own, Courtenay will have their own, Cumberland have their own, territorial areas have their own. Now we're going to have another set of their own. I think maybe we're at the point where we should think about combining everything as one service and as a community maintain them for the betterment of the community. I mean, I don't know how many people from the rural or from the cities use Seal Bay Park. It's a very, very used area. And at the time I said, well, we're talking with Director Grant, it should be all one. And I really don't see having, I don't know how many different services we're going to have now addressing parks and recreation and trails. I really think maybe we should think about one service and handle it. Be so simple.
Thank you. Well, I think that this isn't some renegade idea that it's utilized in other regional districts south of us. They do have a regional parks service that the municipalities pay into as well. But it's not just your run-of-the-mill parks. As you can see, the bar is set very high. So it's on. There was actually some talk about it being unanimous before we purchase anything. So it's pretty close to that at 75%. So, but it does exist. Baby steps forward. I personally think that we have to explore this and see where it's going to lead. That I guess I'm not speaking as the chair. I'm just speaking as a director on that, because I've been very adamant I'm pushing for some of the bigger parcels that are beyond our reach in just the electoral area. So, and I think we all saw a picture of the river with that park in it, or the potential park in it, that has been ongoing now for 20 years. So any other comments, Director Jacques?
Yes, the slide with the budget. You were mentioning through the chair that the budget for this fiscal being proposed is primarily, I think it was 160, and primarily geared towards onboarding the service and doing strategic planning. My question to staff through the chair, if one of the municipalities or if the regional district themselves become aware of a piece of land that is available, given that it appears that this coming year is inward focused around strategic planning. I'm seeing in the budget here, there's not much capital there. So if there were to be an opportunity for land acquisition within the first year, is the way that this budget is laid out now restrictive for this committee to consider acquiring land?
Mr. Chair, my advice would be not to count on it this year. And given the commitments that we've made in terms of engagement with Comox First Nation and the need for this group to come together and arrive at its priorities, it would be a bit of a stretch for us to be in a position where we would have the potential of identifying that a potential land purchase would be one of your priorities that had adequate engagement with Comox First Nation over the period of this year, given what we've got on the table. But having said that, you are in a better place than you were in the past. Director Grieve has referenced that there were opportunities in the past to come together regionally, and we didn't at the time even have this mechanism, and it was very awkward. At the very least, you do have a tool now to come together for those land acquisitions, but my advice to you would be to go through the process of setting your priorities before you begin to set your sights on actual purchase.
Director Grant?
Yeah, I think also you have to figure out a methodology of how you're going to pick which parks. Like I know in Comox, we have a list, right? And when one of those comes up, that's what we go at. It's not the only way you can do it, but we don't even have that established yet. So I think to go out and think about buying something right now, we're premature by, well, we don't, if you actually get the list, also you can figure out how much money you have to put aside in order to buy them as they come up. So all of that still needs to be dealt with before we can think about buying anything at this point, I think.
Thanks very much. We have to move on. We got another meeting in 10 minutes. So anything further on receipt? Seeing none, anybody opposed to receipt? Seeing none, I'll entertain a recommendation.
It was receipt of the orientation. The
Yeah,
next item.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. We kind of drifted into the other part. Okay, so on the orientation, that's an easy one. We'll move along to the receiving the report dated November 28th regarding the advisory committee. Moved and seconded, and speaking to that.
I'll ask Mark to just outline the purpose of the advisory and the recommendation presented to you.
Thank you, Russell. Through the chair, staff are seeking support to establish a regional parks and trails advisory committee, which would really be set up to support this regional parks and trails committee. It would be made up of the regional park managers and set up for the duration of the parks and trails strategic planning process. So that's one part of it. And the second part is to seek support to commence dialogue with Comox First Nation on the strategic planning process. Happy to take any questions. The terms of reference are included in the staff report. And basically the committee is really, the advisory committee is there really to be a forum for contributions, for discussion, for advice from the participating staff, and to keep that strong collaborative efforts going that helped us get to this service establishment in the first place. It's really also there as to provide as a structure to receive information and to provide technical and operational advice.
And we have some speakers. Alternate Director Brown.
Thank you. Just wondering about, I appreciate the addition of the park staff and the expertise they'll bring. I'm wondering about conservation organizations and if they were considered as part of that technical advisory group.
Yeah, through the chair. I think at this stage, we did have that discussion amongst ourselves within the staff. And we thought just to keep it kind of as simple and clean as possible. But that doesn't preclude us from reaching out to those community experts when we need to.
Okay. Director Moore.
Great, thank you. Kind of along the same lines as Mayor Brown, I was wondering, I understand this is more of a technical committee, but in terms of public engagement or public input, is there going to be a mechanism for that, or will that be part of strategic planning? Because of course it would be great to have engagement early rather than, after we've made all the decisions. I'm just curious if that's a part of this service and direction. Thanks.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's something that would be definitely engaged in through the strategic planning process. Public engagement and key stakeholder engagement, Comox First Nation engagement, all those are critical to getting proper feedback, proper input into the delivery of this service. So that will be a key part of the strategic planning process.
Alternate Director Brown.
Sorry, I need orientation on how to work this mic. I don't know how to turn it off, so I don't have anything additionally. Thanks.
Okay. Just press the button.
Just make it go away.
Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, similar to through the chair, similar through my comments earlier, language of engagement in the context of land acquisition within the larger context of reconciliation. I think we need to, in support of Councillor Morin's comments, I think we need to go a little bit further around formalizing relationships with KFN, specifically when it comes to the topic of land acquisition. I think it's beyond sensitive to go to engagement. We actually have, I've been in favor of looking at incorporating them on this terms of reference. City staff, great. They know how to manage parks. We're in a larger conversation of what it means for colonial governments to purchase land, to manage lands that are not historically theirs to manage. And so I would like to see part of this terms of reference a position for whether it be the Guardians or whoever KFN decides would like to be there. I think that, engagement is great, staff to staff, and including them in strategic planning is great as well. But I think having an equal opportunity to have a say in decision making is important. I'd like to hear if there's any consideration staff have on that.
Yeah, through the chair. The advisory committee is definitely open to having a member of the Comox First Nation sit on that committee. But I think I think it's prudent to let Comox First Nation let us know how they want to be engaged and how they want to be part of the process, rather than us formally including them within the terms of reference. But if they want to sit on that advisory committee, then they're certainly welcome to do so.
Very good. See no further speakers, and we are on receipt. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Once again.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that, I think that it would be important, perhaps once the election of the chair happens, that there is a formal invitation that's done, rather than them knowing that there is a spot for them in a formal way. I think provides them the opportunity of saying yes or no and how they want to be there. But I think we need to just ensure, I'd like to hear that this is something that we can commit to doing. Thanks.
Thank you. On the chat from Director Arbor, can staff describe what level of knowledge CFN currently have about this service? Sorry?
Comox First Nation. His question is about Comox First Nation. Yeah, I just say that we have advised Comox First Nation about this process, establishing the service, and made the commitment that we will engage with them as to how they will be part of providing their input or participating in the plan or otherwise. We will continue to do that through our monthly meetings that the board holds with them. And just as a bit of an aside, they are having their elections in January. So probably much of what their commitment and how they see themselves as participating in this will come out in the February or March, and hopefully in advance of your next meeting, but maybe not. But we commit to informing you as to the process that we will undertake with KFN, and also coming back to you with a plan as to what level of public engagement will be held in this process too.
Thank you, Daniel. So any other further comments, discussion? So, on receipt, anybody opposed? That's carried. And recommendation? Moving and seconded on the recommendation. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call a question. Anybody opposed to the recommendation? We have
As listed, the first one there about the terms of reference. for the advisory committee? Thank you. As per my comments, I'd like to make an amendment to the third clause around KFN seeking input on the strategic planning process. I would also add language, and we'd looking to staff for the wording around the inclusion of KFN in this advisory committee.
Well, usually the policy around this table is to put it into into new business and then ask staff to bring back a report to that effect. Sorry.
Yeah, so we're being asked to vote on this recommendation right here, and I'm suggesting that we simply add 4 or 5 words to the third clause that includes engagement, not just on the strategic planning process, but on the inclusion of KFN in the advisory committee.
You're waiting for a seconder on that? We just seconded. Okay. We'll put something up that we can read. We'll get it on the table. It is on the table. Okay, we'll get it up there, but Director Moore.
I was just curious whether there could be a subsequent recommendation that addresses Director Jolicoeur's concern.
So as a mover, would you be open to bringing it up as and further that? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so
And the seconder.
do we have to defeat it?
No. Jake, do you want to come ahead? Got some advice.
We'll go through the legislative machinations here.
Thanks, Chair. So yeah, we've got an amendment to the motion that's been moved and seconded. So at this point, the committee can certainly vote on it as it stands and either pass it or deny it. Or if the committee wishes to withdraw it, they can do so by consent. You don't need a resolution to do so, provided that I think the understanding here is that a subsequent motion would come forward separate from this recommendation to address the interests of the committee member. So again, if the committee wishes to do away with this amendment as it is right now and deal with it through a subsequent resolution, you can just simply withdraw this with the consent of the members being basically a nodding of heads as long as nobody's disagreeing.
What be the will of the committee then? You want to withdraw?
The amendment.
The amendment. Yes, Director Moore.
Point of order, I didn't, so that was second, this recommendation was seconded?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
sorry.
on the table.
I missed that.
We own it. So do you want to defeat it? Do you want to withdraw it? Let me just call the question. Okay, all those in favor of withdrawing? That's 3. 4. 5. Okay, so it's withdrawn. Okay, we're good. So now we can move the motion as it was written. And any further discussion on the main motion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And then over for a subsequent motion, or this would be, and then further that, is that, how's it written up? A brand new, okay. Okay, so and finally that. The board chair sent a letter to Comox First Nations seeking input on the strategic planning process to the Regional Parks and Trail Service.
Yeah, that was already.
Where is
You're
it?
done.
Oh, so it's been added to.
But I think if Director Joliker has something else.
Anything else, Director Joliker?
Yeah, so further to the motion that was just carried, the recommendation on the screen, I would move a motion that the board chair send a letter to KFN seeking input on their intent to participate in the Regional Parks and Trails Advisory Committee. An invitation to the committee and their intent in participating. I'm looking to the staff for the final wording. Thank you.
Okay. We'll get some word crafting going here. Okay.
So, Director Joliker, does that represent your? Yep.
So that is as read. The board chair sent a letter to Comox First Nation seeking input on their interest to participate on the Regional Parks and Trails Advisory Committee and their interest to participate. Intent, sorry. Does that sound about right? Okay. So we'll call the question on that. All in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Director Arbor has a comment, just one moment. Speaking on the motion, caution as whole CBRD also includes Qualicum First Nation and others. So I won't vote in favor of this aspect for now. Just register my opposition. Okay, so Director Arbor is opposed, but the motion is carried. So we didn't get to new business. It came in on the motion. So there's no more media questions, no in camera, motion to terminate. And we're terminated. Thank you.